Have you ever felt invisible? Like no matter how hard you tried, the world just couldn't see you? Levi had felt that way for most of his life. He wasn't a troublemaker, nor did he seek attention. But there was something about being forgotten that cut deeper than anything. And on his 10th birthday, Levi knew exactly what it felt like to be invisible. It was the one day that was supposed to feel special, a day when everyone else around him was getting cakes, presents, and celebrations. But not Levi. His family didn't have money for that, and he had long since learned that birthdays didn't come with surprises, especially not the kind that filled a room with joy. He had learned to keep his wishes quiet, not because he didn't dream, but because he didn't expect them to be heard. On this particular birthday, Levi woke up to the smell of scrambled eggs and the soft clinking of dishes. His mother, tired but always doing her best, had wrapped a small gift for him in the torn corner of a cereal box. There wasn't any cake. There never was. But the quiet love in his mother's eyes was all he needed to make it through the day. Or so he tried to tell himself. But deep inside, something gnawed at him. The kids at school would talk about their birthday parties. They'd share stories about cakes with colorful frosting and balloons floating everywhere. And Levi would nod along, pretending it didn't matter to him. But it did. It always did. "Hey, Levi, you're not going to the bakery for your free cake?" A voice broke through his thoughts. Levi turned around to see Danny, a boy from his neighborhood who always seemed to find a way to make his life harder. Danny had a way of sneering whenever he spoke, like he enjoyed watching Levi squirm. But today, there was something different in his voice, something Levi couldn't quite place. "The bakery's giving out free cakes for birthdays," Danny said, grinning like it was some kind of joke. "You should go. Or, just keep hiding." Levi hesitated. The idea of walking into Mrs. Jackson's bakery felt both like an opportunity and a risk. Mrs. Jackson was the local baker, an older woman with kind eyes and a warm heart. She had been known to help out families who were struggling, and Levi had heard rumors that she gave out free cakes on birthdays. But there was always the question of whether or not she'd give one to a kid like him. A kid who never seemed to have enough. Danny's voice broke through his thoughts again, and Levi looked up to see him standing outside the bakery, arms crossed, and watching him like he was waiting for a reaction. Levi had to admit, the thought of a birthday cake, something sweet, something that could make him feel special for just a moment, pulled at him. So, without saying a word, Levi turned and made his way toward the bakery. As Levi approached Mrs. Jackson's bakery, the familiar smell of freshly baked bread and sweet pastries filled the air. It was a scent that always made his stomach rumble, a reminder of the small joys that could be found in the simplest of places. But today, it felt different. Today, the bakery didn't just smell like flour and sugar. It smelled like possibility. Levi walked slowly, taking in the sight of the bakery's weathered sign hanging above the door. It was a little faded from years of being exposed to the sun, but it still had the same welcoming charm. Mrs. Jackson's bakery had been a fixture in the community for as long as Levi could remember. People came in for their morning coffee, for fresh bread, for birthday cakes that made the smallest celebrations feel grand. But as Levi reached for the door, doubt crept in. He didn't know why he was nervous. He had been to this bakery 100 times. Maybe it was Danny's words, Or maybe it was the idea of asking for something that felt like it shouldn't be asked for. He didn't want to seem like he was taking advantage. He just wanted one moment where he didn't feel like he was invisible. One moment where he could have something that belonged to him and him alone. With a deep breath, Levi pushed the door open. The bell above it chimed softly as he stepped inside. Mrs. Jackson was behind the counter, humming to herself as she arranged a tray of cupcakes. Her silver hair was tied neatly in a bun, and her hands, though wrinkled with age, moved with the kind of grace only years of practice could provide. "Levi," Mrs. Jackson said, her voice warm and familiar. "What can I get for you today, young man?" Levi froze for a moment, caught off guard by her cheerful greeting. She had always been kind to him, but today there was something about her smile that felt different. It was as if she already knew why he was there. Levi opened his mouth to speak, but then hesitated. He felt a lump rise in his throat. It was hard to ask for help, even when it was something as simple as a birthday cake. Instead, he just nodded toward the counter, where a few small cakes were displayed, each decorated with colorful icing and sprinkles. Mrs. Jackson's eyes softened as she looked at Levi. She had known his family for years. She had watched Levi grow from a small, shy boy into the quiet young man standing before her now. She could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the same uncertainty she had seen in so many children who came from families that struggled. She understood. "Levi, it's your birthday today, isn't it?" she asked gently, her voice full of warmth. Levi nodded again, but this time he couldn't hold back the faintest smile. He didn't know why, but the simple acknowledgement of his birthday made him feel a little less invisible. Mrs. Jackson's face lit up as she reached for a cake behind the counter. "Well then, you've come to the right place. Every child in this town gets a cake on their birthday, and that includes you." Levi's heart skipped a beat. A cake? For him? It was almost too much to believe. He had expected something. A small slice, maybe, but not this. Mrs. Jackson picked up the cake, a small round one with soft pink frosting, and a delicate dusting of sprinkles. She set it on a plate and slid it across the counter to Levi. "There you go, dear. This one's for you," she said, her voice like a soothing melody. "And don't worry about paying. It's on the house. I wouldn't dream of letting a birthday go by without a cake." Levi's hands shook slightly as he took the plate, but it wasn't from fear or nervousness. It was from the overwhelming kindness she had just shown him. For a moment, he couldn't even speak. All he could do was look at the cake, the pink icing so smooth, the sprinkles so bright. It wasn't just a cake. It was a gift, a symbol of everything he had wished for, but never thought he could have. "Thank you," Levi whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Mrs. Jackson smiled, her eyes softening with understanding. "You don't have to thank me, Levi. Just enjoy it. Every child deserves to feel special on their birthday." Levi turned to leave, the cake in his hands feeling both fragile and precious, like something that could easily slip away if he didn't hold on tight. But as he stepped out into the warm sunlight, something inside him felt different. Lighter. It wasn't just the cake that had changed his heart. It was the realization that someone had seen him. Really seen him. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he mattered. As Levi walked down the street, the world around him seemed to soften. The noise from the traffic, the chatter of people on the sidewalks, It all felt a little less harsh, a little less distant. Even Danny's mocking voice, which he could hear faintly in the distance, didn't have the same sting. Levi had something now, a reminder that kindness still existed, even in the smallest of places. He didn't know what he was going to do with the cake, whether he would eat it alone in his room or share it with his mother, but he knew one thing for sure. This moment, this kindness, would stay with him forever. And maybe, just maybe, it would be the beginning of something bigger. Years passed in Springfield, and the seasons came and went with predictable rhythm. The town had its ups and downs, like any other, but through it all, Levi had changed. He wasn't the shy, unsure boy anymore. He had grown taller, stronger, more confident. But some things about him remained the same. His love for kindness, his sense of justice, and the memory of a birthday cake that had changed his life forever. Levi had never forgotten the kindness Mrs. Jackson had shown him on his 10th birthday. That simple act of generosity, giving him a cake when no one else would, had sparked something deep inside him. It wasn't just about the cake. It was about the feeling of being seen, of being worthy of something good. Mrs. Jackson's kindness had given him hope, and that hope had carried him through the years. Levi worked hard. He got a job after high school, doing odd jobs around town. He saved every penny, dreaming of a future where he could make a real difference. He knew what he wanted. He wanted to give others what Mrs. Jackson had given him, the feeling that someone cared, the feeling that they weren't forgotten. He had seen enough of the struggles around him to know that people needed kindness, especially when life was hard. One day, years later, Levi found himself walking down Main Street, passing by the bakery that had once been his sanctuary. Mrs. Jackson's bakery still stood in the same spot, its familiar sign swaying gently in the breeze. The scent of fresh bread and pastries filled the air, just as it always had. But there was something different this time. A for sale sign hung in the window, and Levi's heart sank. He hadn't known that Mrs. Jackson was planning to sell the bakery. She had always been the heart of the town, the one who showed up when people were down, offering warmth in the form of cakes, cookies, and smiles. The thought of the bakery closing, of the kindness leaving with it, was almost too much to bear. Levi stood there for a moment, staring at the sign, and then, as if a light bulb had gone off in his head, he made a decision. He didn't have much money saved up, but he had enough to make an offer. He knew he had to try. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was a legacy. It was a place where kindness lived, and Levi couldn't bear the thought of that legacy disappearing. A week later, Levi walked into the bakery, now under new ownership. Mrs. Jackson had retired, handing over the keys to Levi, who had scraped together every penny he could. The old baker had handed him the baton, trusting him to continue what she had started. Levi stood behind the counter, his hands on the same flour-dusted wood that Mrs. Jackson had worked on for years. He could almost feel her presence there, guiding him. The bakery smelled the same, like sweetness, like comfort, like home. But there was one thing missing, the old woman who had created it all. Levi wasn't sure if he could ever fill those shoes, but he knew he had to try. He couldn't let the legacy of kindness slip away. "Levi!" The sound of a familiar voice broke his thoughts. It was Mrs. Jackson, standing in the doorway with a warm smile on her face. "You've done it," she said softly, her eyes twinkling with pride. "You're carrying it on." Levi smiled back, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I won't let you down, Mrs. Jackson. I promise." And he didn't. Every year, without fail, Levi continued the tradition of giving away cakes to children on their birthdays, just like Mrs. Jackson had done for him. No child in Springfield would go without a cake, not if Levi had anything to say about it. The bakery became a place of refuge for kids and families who had nowhere else to turn, just as it had been for Levi all those years ago. But there was one difference now. Levi wasn't just the recipient of kindness anymore. He was the one giving it, and it felt good. As the years went by, Levi's generosity spread far beyond Springfield. People came from nearby towns to taste his cakes, and word of his kindness reached further than he could have ever imagined. The bakery wasn't just a place to buy sweets. It had become a symbol of hope, of community, and of love. It wasn't always easy. There were challenges, times when the bakery was slow, times when money was tight, times when the world seemed like it was falling apart. But Levi never wavered. He knew that every cake he gave away, every smile he shared, made a difference, and it made all the hard work worth it. One day, as Levi was decorating a cake in the back of the bakery, a young boy walked in. He couldn't have been more than 10 or 11, and Levi could see the same look of uncertainty in his eyes that he had once had. The boy was standing at the counter, clutching his shirt nervously. Levi turned and smiled at him. "Hey there, what can I get for you?" The boy hesitated, then spoke quietly. "I was wondering, it's my birthday today, and I don't have enough money for a cake." Levi's heart ached. He could see the same sadness in this boy's eyes that he had felt years ago. Without missing a beat, he reached for a cake, just like the one Mrs. Jackson had given him. "It's on the house," Levi said gently, sliding the cake across the counter to the boy. "Happy birthday." The boy's eyes widened, and for a moment, he just stood there, unsure of what to say. Then, with a smile that lit up his face, he whispered, "Thank you. Thank you so much." Levi nodded, watching as the boy left the bakery, the cake clutched tightly in his hands. He knew that this small act, this simple gesture, could change the boy's life just like it had changed his all those years ago. It wasn't about the cake. It was about the feeling of being seen, of being cared for, of knowing that someone out there believed in you. As Levi watched the boy disappear into the distance, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had taken Mrs. Jackson's legacy and made it his own. He had turned a forgotten birthday cake into a symbol of hope, and in doing so, had found his purpose in life. And he knew that as long as he had the bakery, he would never forget what it felt like to be the forgotten boy who was given a slice of kindness. He would make sure that no one else would ever feel that way again. Thank you for watching.